I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our panel and our moderator, Jonathan Turlow from National Geographic Traveler, who is going to lead us into the panel discussion about sustainable tourism, which we are all very interested in because it is the viability of our environment and the world we live in. So with that note, Jonathan, over to you.
So just in case you're confused, I am not Seleni Matus. This is Seleni Matus, and you'll be hearing from her very shortly. The word sustainable in front of tourism has been undergoing some changes lately. Used to be, it was pretty much thought of as linen reuse and low voltage light bulbs. But it's become much bigger than that in many different ways. And one is that it is now encompassing destinations as a whole, and that's what we're going to be talking a lot about in this session. And it encompasses more than just the environment. And I'll try to set the stage here with a few pictures, and then we'll move it on to our next speakers. I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman who works with the Hawaii Tourism Board, a few time zones away from here. And I was pleased to learn that for reasons they did not particularly care for, the Hawaii tourism effort is now focused much more than it has been in the past on culture, nature, and history of Hawaii. And the reason was they were forced into it because airfares were going up, airlines were not serving Hawaii as well, and just pushing pure sun and sand tourism was not working for them, particularly with a strong Asian market that could go to places like the Philippines or Saipan much more cheaply. And Hawaii is now actually directing quite a bit of the bed tax to boosting the experiences the visitors can have interacting with Hawaiian culture, nature, and so on. And I think this is, in a way, a wonderful development, even though it was one that they were kind of forced into, and maybe a good thing for the Caribbean to keep an eye on as we go forward here. So it's more than just being green, and just as you heard from Susan, increasingly people want to understand the places they're going to, enjoy it, and have an experience there. And we can think of kind of the Caribbean, it sort of presents two different faces, and how people perceive it is very important, because this type of the Caribbean is distinctly Caribbean. And every one of those pictures elicits something about that particular region. This one is much more the mass tourism strain, complete with McDonald's. These are different audiences, it's a different image. And part of your job is to figure out which audience you want to appeal to and what sort of image you want to project. This is my concern, and I'm pleased to see that we are adding spice to the Caribbean experience. And this is kind of the old model. As many people as possible on the beach, paying as little as possible on the beach. If you don't recognize that beach, you're forgiven. It's not in the Caribbean. It's in Spain. Can you tell the difference? And this is a little game I like to play with some audiences. This is a series of little cafes on the same beach. A couple of you may recognize it. What island are you on as you walk down this beach looking at these different businesses? Somebody recognized. I showed this to an audience in the Philippines earlier this year. They were completely baffled and kind of hesitantly guessed maybe Hawaii. Well, there's between 12 and 20 businesses on Orient Beach on the French side of St. Martin. The only one reflecting the geography of the place was this one, and it's not even the right side of the island because St. Martin is on the Dutch side and we're on the French side. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of these businesses. They're nice businesses, but it would be even nicer if you had a more unique Caribbean feel and specifically a French St. Martin feel from some of these businesses. More distinctive, more memorable. So what is distinctive about Caribbean destinations? And as you just heard, all sorts of stuff. Just look at all these different aspects of what the place is about. The flora and fauna of the Caribbean, and that's a moneymaker, by the way. Here's a study of people who enjoy watching birds while they're on vacation. I don't mean dedicated bird watchers that go around like this, but just part of what we want to see are some birds. And look at the household income increases as people are interested in that. That's 46 million tourists in the US alone. It would be even higher than that for your UK market. There's wilderness in the Caribbean, even in the Bahamas. These are the Berry Islands. Architecture, traditional culture of all sorts, of course. History, this is the route of the Garifuna across the Caribbean to Honduras. Archaeology, do you see it? There it is, back from pre-Columbian days. Historic restoration and art in places like Curacao here. Local music all over the place. Garifuna dances here in the Bay Islands. Agriculture in various parts of the Caribbean. All of this quite distinctive and interesting. Local crafts and products. And when you think about these pictures, every one of these is illustrating something that a small business can take advantage of, a civic group, and most important, everyone has stories connected with it. And as we've just heard from Susan, telling stories, showing stories is the most important part of marketing what's special about any island. And for people in the media like me, it gives us something to write about and photograph. I had a rum punch on the beach is a pretty short story. Look at all these different kinds of ice cream that Grenada has in this one place. And you can't get these here in the States, not a lot of them. And nice places to eat the cuisine. Scenic beauty. Caribbean has enormous scenic beauty. Let's see more of that in the pictures, not just the beaches. So sustainability means destination quality and destination distinctiveness. Can you tell where you are? And look at a hotel like this. Can you tell? Could be anywhere a palm tree grows. That one looks like it's in an industrial park, except it has a beach. But developments like this, and that's a brand new development, or it was when I took this picture, also on the French side of St. Martin. It's designed to look, a little cutesy maybe, but it's designed to look as if it belongs in the Caribbean. All these different types of lodging, including different types of villas, these have a sense of feel to them. They give you stories to tell. They give people stories to tell when they go home and send other tourists onward to your destination. Many of you know I'm an advocate for the concept of geotourism, which is basically what we're talking about here, geographical character. And it's important to remember the whole point of tourism economically is to benefit local people. And what better way to do that than to help support local businesses and suppliers that can bring distinctive crafts, services, foods, and drinks and whatnot to the travel experience. So when we're talking about sustaining the geotourism assets of the Caribbean, we're talking about protecting and enhancing the place, the island, the part of the island, even your particular corner of the island. And of course, there is an environmental message in here as well, protect the habitats, and there's some selfish reasons to do this. Remember, coral reefs serve a quadruple purpose, supplying sand for the beaches. The parrotfish help with that, and that's what people are buying when they're sitting on the beach. They're your buffer against hurricanes. They're a great asset for resort guests to look at and understand the coral reefs. And that understand is often a missed bet. Here's your snorkel, there's the reef. Well, what am I looking at? What's the story here? And there's a lot of stories there. And just doing more with snorkeling is an opportunity. And also, very important, coral reefs are one of the three main nurseries for marine life, the marine food chain, and that food chain ends up being the food on your plate in the restaurant. So any resort that is not helping people, helping guests understand the value of coral reefs and some other environmental issues out there, like that one, that's Male, that's not in the Caribbean, but you don't want your islands to begin looking like that. And consider, too, that the guests that come to the Caribbean are from pretty affluent, influential people back home. This is a marvelous educational opportunity. It has to be done in a fun way. These are people on vacation, but no one should go home from a Caribbean vacation not knowing more about the Caribbean, its environment, some global warming issues, whatever is of concern to you. Make sure your guests learn about it in a very pleasant, entertaining way. They may not even realize they've learned something. That's a real success. And sustainability also includes history. And there's a lot of history in the Caribbean. And still we see in many parts of the world a kind of urge to knock down the old things and put up something new. But I can assure you that it's the repurposed hotels that end up on the cover of a travel magazine, not like that one I showed before. And adaptive reuse can even take some fun forms, as with this restaurant in Curacao. Another way to look at airline food. Now, I have 3 advertisements before I turn it over to our next speaker. One is National Geographic Traveler has relaunched its World Legacy Awards. There's 5 categories, and any of you who feel you are doing cutting-edge stuff in the area of sustainability, you can apply for these awards. They'll be given out at ITB, the next ITB, and if you want to find out more, you go to nationalgeographic.com/World Legacy Awards, all one word. That's ad number 1. Ad number 2 is for the geotourism concept. You can find that by going to destinationcenter.org or geotourism.org. And ad number 3 is for our next speaker, because Seleni Matus has been taking a leading role, an absolutely critical role, in promoting the idea of sustainable destinations for the Caribbean. And she's going to talk about the trends that are leading up to this, and then later on about the new Sustainable Destinations Alliance. And with that, I'm going to set up I'm going to try to set up her talk here. And that means I have to get out of this. Okay, can you, first we have to get rid of that, and then, nope, it's that one there. And Seleni is currently the Vice President of Latin America and the Caribbean for the Sustainable Travel International Group. And she is also the former director of the Belize Tourism Board, so she knows whereof she speaks. Seleni?
Thanks, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here as a former part of the cadre of leading decision makers for all our destinations in the Caribbean, to really talk about, the other side of the coin. We've been earlier this morning talking about, well, how do we attract more visitors and the types of visitors that we want to our destinations. But the other side of the coin for us, former and existing destination decision makers, is ensuring that our destinations are viable long term and figuring out, well, how do we start talking about the story of what we're doing about, enhancing the visitor experience, ensuring that our communities are gaining maximum benefits from tourism and so forth. So it's all that hard work involved now as well. It's not only figuring out how to, come up with the most attractive images of our destinations and putting it in those spaces where we have our prospective visitors, but it's also trying to bring out more of what is authentic and unique about our destinations. So I've been asked to basically help present the latest trends and thinking about destination sustainability. Actually in 2011, US brands invested more than $40 billion in green marketing. That's not exclusive to the travel sector at all. This is just overall. So it really shows that sustainability it does matter, and there's a growing interest across the board, not only within the travel sector, but consumers more generally, really wanting to understand how their purchase, whether it be to your destination or the product that I feel compelled to purchase next, what the value of that is, and what is important, what is my footprint from purchasing that specific thing, whether it is, the long haul travel if I'm coming from the UK to visit your beautiful island, or if it's right within the US that I'm traveling. So, I think that by far and large, many of us in this room could identify with this statement of, we're all decision makers here, and we've all seen how tourism has touched not only our sector, but has had just profound impacts within our economies that extend way beyond the travel sector. And so it is a force, or can be a force for good on our planet. And if we carefully manage it, it can definitely enrich the lives, strengthen communities, and also help us conserve our natural and cultural heritage and resources on which the industry is actually built. So here are some interesting statistics, and I'm sure many of you have seen many of these statistics, and it can be said in the same breath that you could find statistics for everything that you want to show. However, it's pretty interesting to see what consumers are saying about green travel in general, and then more specifically destinations, which is the new kid on the block. So in 2012, based on sort of TripAdvisor's intelligence, they found that 30% of travelers chose a destination because it was considered eco-friendly. Interestingly, that same year, the #1 most eco-friendly destination was Costa Rica, also based on TripAdvisor. So we're seeing more that, where initially the conversation was, well, is my hotel green? Or what is the tour operator, or the activity that I'm participating in the specific destination, what footprint is that leaving? Now that conversation is expanding to also include destinations, as Jonathan mentioned. We see here a few of the statistics. About 66% of consumers in the US believe that their travel choice would like to see that their travel choice makes a difference. And the list goes on here. The important statistic from this slide as well is that last one, which says that 56% of consumers are seeking and looking for information. Because guess what? While many of us and many of you have been working hard to make sure that your hotels are looking at certification perhaps, or adopting good practices, you may have your sustainable tourism master plans and so forth, finding that information or any information about sustainability of your destination or even the hotels is still very difficult to find. It's a difficult proposition to find green travel options still, believe it or not. And so we as a collective are not doing the best job possible to really tell the story of what we are doing to ensure that our destinations are here long term. So where are we today? We know that destinations are a central component of a sustainable trip. But most of the existing travel systems do not consider it. For instance, there are over like 200 certification programs for hotels globally, and there are less than 5 certification programs for destinations. Last year was a pretty important year because it was, there were 2 large-scale initiatives that published guidance for destinations regarding sustainability. The Global Sustainable Tourism Council put out their guidelines for destination sustainability, and so did the European Commission. Yes, They developed a toolkit to help their destinations start working on sort of the key pillars of sustainability. And so there is this growing movement. This global conversation is still nascent. And there are a few new tools existing out there that are helping you now to really tackle sustainability issues more deeply. And we'll be talking about those a little later on in the panel conversation. So 4 simple facts about destination sustainability. What does it involve? Well, it's all about creating the right balance between the expectations of your visitors, whether that be, as we heard earlier from Susan, you know, especially affluent travelers wanting Wi-Fi and having to, you know, just making sure that in all the aspects of the visitor experience, you're able to provide that. It means balancing those expectations like that with what your community is needing, whether it be your private sector or whether that be Mrs. Jones, who has the, you know, the stand outside the cruise terminal that's selling coconuts every morning. So we need to, you know, what destination stewardship is all about is balancing the needs of the visitor with your private sector, local community, and so forth. Importantly, to understand that sustainability goes beyond environmental protection. I know that, you know, oftentimes when we think about sustainability, the first thing that we think about is the environment. It goes beyond that. It looks at the governance of tourism in your destination. You know, do you have those key things? Do you have your tourism, your sustainable tourism master plan? Do you have staff within your DMOs that are really looking at sustainability and sustainable tourism development? Do you have the budget to really help you get your key projects off the ground in this area? So it looks at governance, it also looks at your traditional environmental issues, it also looks at to what extent is the community involved in major decision making related to tourism, and how are they benefiting from tourism? And also, how are you managing your natural and cultural sites and attractions to ensure that you know, they're not trampled over time? So it goes way beyond environmental protection. Also, sustainability is a journey. It's not a one initiative, you know, to say, oh yeah, I did that, and I can point to my sustainable tourism master plan. There it is, it's on the shelf. It goes much beyond that as well. It's a journey. The fact is that it's not only you as, you know, government representatives in the DMOs that really have responsibility for ensuring wise management. It's a shared responsibility between you and private sector and your NGOs. And everyone brings certain resources and know-how to the table to ensure that you're addressing the host of issues that you should be. And it also involves shared decision-making. As you do through your quasi-governmental agencies, for instance, for marketing. There needs to be more of that type of model as well for sustainability initiatives. There are early adopters. You know, we are getting this, even within the Caribbean. We have St. Kitts on the panel who will be talking about their experience, but St. Croix also very recently participated in the Global Sustainable Tourism Council's assessment program. So there are many, and there are about 14 other destinations as well. We took a look at, you know, who's doing what, that have these first steps, whether you've done a destination sustainability assessment or have your action plans in place and are working on key initiatives. So it is something that we take seriously as a group, and that there is some effort to show already on this front. The tides are shifting for sure. And we just saw in one of the advertisements that Jonathan mentioned, the World Legacy Awards. And where more and more we're seeing that many of these award programs include destinations as a category. Look at CTO's award category. Last year alone, they introduced the category of destinations and destination stewardship. So we are seeing that more and more there is recognition by these not only regional, as is the example of the CTO, but also the World Legacy Award and World Travel and Tourism Council's Tourism for Tomorrow Awards. They also have a destination category. So for all of you that have been doing good work on this front, make sure that you are aiming to get your destinations recognized by participating in these award programs. We're also seeing the media, really be an advocate in helping us to promote destination sustainability, and National Geographic Society has definitely been a leader in this space. They've ranked destinations over the years, and Jonathan has, this has been definitely one of his important projects there. And this is many years ago. Jonathan started with the vision of it's important to understand what destinations are doing and how change is occurring in these destinations over time. We also are seeing a few travel companies starting to support your work. And we have Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited here on the panel, and Miguel will be sharing more about what they're doing on this front. And this is only growing. So all this to really say that more and more companies are looking to understand what you're doing about sustainability, and are looking, in some cases, to even support your work. Why? Because at the end of the day, experiences are made in destinations. And so it's in everyone's best interest to really support this. So it's not a fad. It's definitely a movement that's growing and here to stay. So one last example before I close off this segment of the presentation. This is to show you how much support there is for this coming from your travel partners. And you'll be seeing, I think, over the next few years, lots more queries about what you're doing on destination sustainability. So let's all try to get in front of that curve. There is a network of about 15 major travel companies called the Sustainable Travel Leadership Network. And here you see some of the brands listed on here. And they got together about a year ago, and were talking among themselves and said, we need to really help our consumers be able to understand how sustainable their trips are. Not hotels, not only tour operators, but their trips are overall. And how can we work across sectors together to be able to understand and provide our consumers with information about how sustainable their trip is. So they were thinking among themselves, imagine having, for instance, an application over the next few years where you as a traveler would be able to stack the different pieces or components of your trip, and you'd be able to get a sustainability rating for that trip as opposed to another trip if you were to change, for instance, a destination or perhaps the hotel, in that specific destination and so forth. So this is where, travel companies are now thinking about, just looking at how important this green market segment is and its growth over time. So they came up with this initiative called Travel Well Destinations. And the idea behind this is to create a global repository eventually that would contain sustainability information about your destinations. And so they're focusing on the Caribbean and Central America and Latin America as a first phase in this. And what they did was we developed a very simple tool, a self-assessment, that we pilot tested with these 15 companies last year. Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited, of course, is a part of this network. And Miguel will be talking about what they're doing to grow this program. But we put out a call to destinations around the world and got 56 qualified responses. There's a small pilot test before this is taken or pushed out more globally. And the idea is to basically, through this self-assessment, provide destinations with a measure that's going to help them to identify their priorities or what the priorities are through the self-assessment. Also, this repository would help travel companies identify destination levels, risks, and also opportunities. The results of this self-assessment was, and I just wanted to quickly project this. Now, the caveat here is that this was a small pilot test. It was 56 destinations. Many of your destinations participated. You'll see that we had about 15 responses, mainly from the Caribbean. And we looked at, the self-assessment covered all the key pillars of sustainability as defined by the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which is this global guidance that I mentioned was made available last year. And you'll see that, this is just sort of the percentages based on the responses to 20 key questions that were built around these indicators that matter the most and give us a sense of, what you're working on along these 4 pillars of sustainability. This is a very small example to help you understand of the trends to come. This is building up now. And the Sustainable Travel Leadership Network would like to take this globally and are actually working with their members, RCL being one of them, to expand this repository now. And imagine in 5-6 years us having this information region-wide, having a unified approach to sustainable destination management, having information that you can use in your destination to prioritize the work that needs to be done. Imagine you getting a report card, that can help you to zoom in on those things that matter the most. Imagine using that information then to consolidate results, to be able to provide snapshots of where we are as a region so that we can eventually start talking about this in a very compelling manner in order to differentiate our region as one that is seriously committed to sustainability. So these are a few thoughts, and now we'll get into real examples of how this is playing out in our region. Thank you.